the next 5 minutes, I'll try to describe to you what the LACAC is and what our progress has been in Matilda and where we stand today. I wasn't going to show this chart, but I noticed someone asked about a place being Dundela. Where is Dundela? And I realize this is small for you to see, but I hope you all have good eyes. You can see that this is Dundas County. Are you all familiar with Dundas County? Mountain Township, Winchester Township, Williamsburg, and here we are in Matilda. Do some of you people live outside of Matilda? I think you do, going to Nation View. You'd be back here and live over in this township. All right, that church that we're talking about is located at Dundela, and it's at about the eastern side of our township, about halfway back on the, what's it on, the 6th concession or 5th concession? About the 5th concession in there. Now, LACAC, that's L-A-C-A-C, means Local Architectural Conservation Advisory Committee. And there is myself, plus about 5 or 6 other people who are quite interested in this, and our objective is to preserve the old architecture in the township of Matilda. Now, in order to understand what we mean by old architecture, I'm going to give you people, with your permission, a 5-minute history lesson on 250 years in Matilda Township. And I'm going to do it very quickly. And some of these items that you won't know about, I'm sure you haven't taken them in school, but if you're going to talk about events that happen in Matilda, we have to relate to a bit to world events. So I'm going to take you back. I'm going to start here in 1989. Here we are tonight. All of us are here alive and well. Let's flip back. We'll go back to 1756 to 1763. Now that's a long way back, but that's when we became British. That's when we became under the control of the British Empire, the Battle of the Plains of Abraham, Wolfe and Montcalm, we became British. Okay, in 1775 to 1783, if you've watched television, you all know about the War of Independence in the United States. Disneyland have dramatized that many times. And the United States became separate from us, and the 13 colonies along the ocean, the seaboard, were different. And that's when we started to form over here in Matilda Township, because the UELs, who were kicked out of the States, who had to leave because they were loyal to the British Crown, started to settle in this area. And tonight, I heard the name Pollock, and I heard the name Merkley over here. Your families are probably UEL, way back. The rest of the names I didn't quite recognize, but see, you could likely trace it back. Now, these people came over and started to settle in Dundas County. Remember I showed you there a few minutes ago, mainly in Matilda at Williamsburg. And names like Coombs, names like Coombs and Markles and Meekleys, Markles and Meekles and Merkleys, and Casselmans and Coonrods and Barclays. You can trace all of these people back, and they came as soldiers or came as UELs. Then we had the War of 1812, and that's when the United States felt that we should join them. 1812, 1814, and that affected us along here because we had a battle down at Chrysler Farm. And the Matilda Militia, that was people from here, went down to fight at Chrysler Farm. Okay, what have we got in 1814 here in types of dwellings? What was in Matilda Township at that time? Most people were still living in log cabins. Some stonemasons started to appear on the scene, and some other skills, and we were starting to get traces of stone buildings. Now we get to 1827. That brings us up a little bit further, and the Rideau Canal was built. Now there was an abundance of stone houses. Now I'm going to try to relate to you some of the stone houses that you might be able to pick them out. Now where we got people living here? Anybody, tell me where they live.
Third.
On the 3rd concession? What is your name?
Janice Bout.
Bout, okay, just up the road from you a bit. There's a stone house there. Come down and go out to the Shavers. Do you know where Glenn Shaver lives? There is a real old stone house. That one's been around for a long time. Anybody else? Any other concession? But that's the style of house, just a square box house, story and a half. Those houses started to come on the scene. And if sometime, if you drive up the number 2 highway, up along the river, just take a look at all the old stone houses that were built from from Iroquois to Cardinal. And those houses were built by masons, many of the masons who came down from the Rideau Canal. Naturally, they were good tradesmen. There was all sorts of forts and what have you being built. Fort at Kingston was being built, and those tradesmen spilled over and came down into this area. Now, in 1837, time is marching on. We had another battle. You see, Matilda Township is related quite a bit to battles. We had the Battle of the Windmill up there by Prescott. Again, Matilda militia, the people who were living in these stone houses, the people who were living in these log houses along here, went up there to fight in that battle, that little battle they had up there, and of course came back to their homes. Now, let's go on a little bit further. 1867, this was the Civil War in the United States. Now, what was going on in Matilda Township at this time? Well, okay, brick was being made here. We had a brick place to manufacture brick down at Morrisburg. There was one up north of Haynesville. I learned that the other day. I don't know just exactly where it was. There was supposed to be one back near your Nation View School. Somewhere back in there was a brick one. Okay, they drew the brick and they started to build brick houses. And their church in Davila was built in 1881. The brick for it came from down below Morrisburg. There was a house, I was talking to the owner of a house just west of Iroquois and on the Broken Second. And the brick for his house came from back around Haynesville. So we started to get brick houses. Now this is another style of house that LACAC is concerned about. I've talked about two thus far. We got the log cabin here, and I don't know of any log building in which people are living today, except one house that's back at the north end of the township, and I've yet to confirm this. It's been covered over with siding, but there might be one original log building left. We have several stone houses that people were living in, and of course we have many brick houses. Now, there also were several wooden houses built, and they had different styles of building those wooden houses. As I said, I'm only going to take 2 or 3 minutes. There was the standard frame construction. There was plank put on their side. There were brick filled, and usually they were similar to the stone house. They were kind of boxy little houses. The roof came down. Some of them had dormer windows, a couple windows in the end, and they put a porch on. Then as we marched on and we get up here, there was the Fenian raids. That was 1866. These were some Irishmen that down east along the river here felt that we should be freed from the British rule. They tried that and failed. And then we had the Riel Rebellion out west, and the conservative government stamped him down. Okay, in 1866 to, let's say about 1890, in here, we enjoyed some wealth in the township, and several fancy wood houses were constructed. And I can, Mr. well wait, he doesn't, that's a long time ago. Wait, who lives in the Esel Hansen house now?
Peter Bible.
Peter Weibelt's below town here. The veranda in that. Pardon?
Oh, you mean Miraga?
No, the wooden house right here below.
I thought you meant the farm.
No, the wooden house here.
Mr. Murray.
Marecker? All right, there's an example of one of the fancy houses that were built during this period in here. They had learned how to use lathes. They had better saws. They had better materials, and they were able to make all these fancy spools and what have you. I was talking to a man today, and he said, as a matter of interest, did you know that get this, the first power line that was put back through the country here went in 1924. Can you believe that we didn't have electric lights in this area until 1924? And the line went from Williamsburg to Winchester. And if you lived close to that, you were lucky. You got power. If you lived away from it, you didn't have power. Then we had World War I and World War II. Now, to us, to LACAC people, this is modern. And we're not too interested in this period. Someday you will be, someday your children will be. This will be the history period for you. But condensing it or summing up here now, as far as the LACAC committee is concerned that's being generated in Matilda Township, we're interested in the old stone houses that were built back at the time that the Rideau Canal went through, or back in the early 30s, like the Carmen House in Iroquois is a good example of one. It was built in about 1830. That's an excellent example of a stone house. We're interested in the brick houses. We're interested in the fancy trim on the brick houses. That is historic as far as we're concerned, because it tells how the people were living at that time when those were built. They were prosperous, they were proud of their houses, and they were trimming. And we're interested in a lot of the wooden frame houses that were built, the same thing. Now, what can we do to make people aware of this? Well, as we progress with LACAC, we're going to advertise what our objective is, and let's say that one of you people here own that stone house, one of those stone houses, and you want that house designated as an historic house. All right, you will talk to us, we'll talk to you, we'll trace the deed of that house back as far as we can, and we'll find that maybe a colonel or a lieutenant or somebody in the Royal Yorkers, that was a regiment that fought in here, came there, got a grant, built that house. He was a UE loyalist, he built that house and started to raise his family there. That is sufficient to designate it as an historic house. So we designate it as an historic house, and then you can get grants from the government to repoint your stone and put a new roof on the outside, providing it's the same type of roof that was done. Now let me talk just for a minute about the United Church of Dundee, and I'll support everything that our Reeve said. The building can be restored, but I've talked, as a matter of fact, it was in Ottawa yesterday. In order for a building like that to be restored, there has to be a use for it. You just can't say, we'd like to restore that church, isn't this wonderful, we're going to restore it. Because as soon as our council starts spending taxpayers' money to restore a building just for the sake of having it in our town, or in our township, there's going to be a lot of static raised by the taxpayers. It has to serve a purpose. Somebody suggested here, all of these things that our young council suggested could all be legitimate reasons. Then it has a need, then it has a purpose, then we have an organization behind it, then we can do something with it. But to do it for the sake of doing it, I'm afraid we're never going to be able to do that. And there are a few things you have to keep in mind. When a building becomes a public building today, it has to have proper washrooms, it has to have proper fire escapes. It becomes quite expensive. You say to me, how much would it cost to restore that building? It costs a lot of money. You're looking at $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, very easily, or more. And that's a lot of money. Any questions on LACAC? Any questions? I gave you 230 minutes of history in 5 minutes or less. I know it's a subject it would be difficult for you children to get interested in, but someday you will.
There's a young girl over here that had hand up.
Yes.
I have a question. How long has your committee been in existence?
We're really not officially a committee yet, but fortunately we have the good grace, the consent of our council. As soon as I get the necessary paperwork together.
So we really don't have any idea that in the township of how many buildings that we do have that are still able to be,
No, we haven't done a complete inventory. This is it. For your benefit, I'll just take another minute here and come back and show you. This is the standard that's laid down by the government, but Matilda Township, us right here tonight, we can call our own standards for designating. One is with a life of an historical person. I can give you an example of that. Could be Dr. Harkness, could be Dr. Locke. You can say those people are historic. Construction of a particular period, and I've named 3 periods tonight: the log house, the frame, or 4 periods: log house, frame house, brick house, stone house. Landmark, the United Church of Dundee. It's a landmark. Retain a large part of its integrity. United Church of Dundee. It's almost like it was when it was built. Style, use of materials and details. The trim on some of the old houses, the fancy trim. There are 3 or 4 basic styles of veranda trim in Matilda Township alone. I know pretty well now where they all are. You can spot different styles, something that the average person probably never really notices on those old houses. So those are the criteria that we can use, but we can use in our township whatever we feel makes it an historic house. We might say, as long as a person gained fame within the township, might be our first Reeve, might be Reeve Mellon someday. This house could be considered an historic house because he lived there. Any others? Any other question? I've either got you so confused or I've done a good job. I'm not sure which it is.
Well, interesting, I have a lot of it.
I'd just like to make a little comment there, I don't know how the subject came up, but I just noticed that 1924, that the first power come back through the country. But, I was in Winchester today and we were just talking, it come up, the reason that power line was brought back through the country was that, Beach family in Winchester had quite a business going in Winchester, sawmill and everything, and, they are the ones that actually brought that line back through and sold power to people on the way back through to complete this line.
When it came from Dearborn?
Yes,
Iroquois, yes.
came back to, I followed the gravel road back to Harkness's, and then took off down through the country. Dundee United Church was one of the first churches in the township that had power. Then they ran a branch back here to Brinson, and went on back to South Mountain, and South Mountain was one of the first to have streetlights. Each year, they went another few miles. They didn't put it all in 1 year. Okay.
Carlos, I might comment, I don't know if any of the students here are from back in Mountain Township, north end of Mountain. Are there any of you people from Mountain? Yeah. Carlos has looked all through Matilda Township to find a good log building. Now, there are, you'd like to know, there's quite a few back there that are being not used as houses, but they're being used as the farm storage shed.
In Mountain Township. Well, incidentally, I've limited my interest only to Matilda. Matilda Township and the village of Iroquois. We have hope someday that we will call what South Dundas, that Williamsburg and Morrisburg may join us on this little venture, and we'll study the whole south end of the township.